Hey everyone, welcome back to the I Heart Podcast. My name is Jonathan North, and welcome to another episode of I Heart Animation. Today, my friend Mark Brown is joining me, and he has chosen one of my favorite semi-recent, but now semi-obscure films, The Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole. I really like this movie for several reasons, so I was really happy when Mark chose this one for us to talk about. So, I guess we'll start with, you chose this movie like a long time ago. So, what was it about this movie that made you want to talk about it?
I guess I remember when I watched this movie for the first time, which was, I don't know, back in 2010 or 2011 or whatever. I just loved it. Like, I didn't expect to love this movie so much. It was one of my favorite, non-Disney, non-Pixar animated films.
Mm-hmm.
And then as time went by, I felt no one was really talking about it, or people who were talking about it seemed to not like it as much as I did. So I feel maybe this is, and I haven't seen the movie since then. So I figured, hey, this would be a good chance, an opportunity to rewatch the movie and see if I feel the same way.
So, did you rewatch it just recently for this?
Literally last night.
I rewatched it this afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
I've been busy. This whole week is really busy, so I didn't get a chance till today to watch it.
Nice.
So for you, how did it hold up from what you remember till now?
It's still really good. I think it might be maybe 0.25% less than what I liked before, but I mean that's nothing. It's still pretty good. I love the story. This whole hierarchy of owls. This owl legendary battles and legendary soldiers, and I just love the characters. I love the animation. I know some people don't like it, but I do like those slow motion. Zack Snyder.
I loved those scenes.
he was. This was a perfect movie for him to make his animated film debut in.
Well, I had really no experience with Zack Snyder before this movie. Like, I'm not really a fan of super violent R-rated movies. I watched like pretty much zero. So I had never seen like 300 or Watchmen or whatever else he's done. I don't remember them all, but so this was my introduction to him. Back then I wasn't quite as into the filmmaking world as I am now. So I didn't really look into anything else he'd done. I just recognized his name as the person behind this movie. So then later on, when he was announced as the director for Superman, I was like thrilled. Was like, that owl movie was amazing. Superman is going to be amazing. And then I was supremely disappointed.
I'm the same like you. I don't really watch R-rated movies either, so I also did see 300 and Watchmen. So this was my introduction to Zack Snyder. But then compared to Justice League and Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, the Owl movie still is best.
yes, it's totally his best film. When it came out, and it was back in 2010, did you watch it in the theaters?
No, I saw this on. Usually, I watch movies when they come on DVD, and then I get them for free at my local library. So I feel I must have watched this I don't remember what month this came out in theaters. So I don't know if it would have been late 2010 I watched it on DVD, or maybe early 2011. Somewhere around then.
Yeah, I can't remember if I watched this one in theaters or not, but I remember when it came out, I was really excited about it. Like, I was following it, watching trailers and everything, because I love owls. Like, I went and dug through all my old boxes. I have this book. It's called Tyto, which is a barn owl. And like, I looked for stuff online about this book, and I couldn't really find anything. So I'm guessing this is not like a popular book, because I couldn't find much online. Like, there was an Amazon page, but it wasn't for sale anymore, and there was no comments, no reviews.
Oh wow!
A blank page with the title on it. So, like, I've loved owls since I was a kid, and especially barn owls. And of course, this movie is about a barn owl, so I was really excited for it. And then to like, I guess the icing on the cake was the year before this came out, I had first heard Owl City. Like he blew up with Fireflies, and then he announced that he was doing a song for this
Yeah.
movie, and like that like sealed the deal. I was like all in. It's about owls, and there's a song by Owl City. Like I had to see this movie.
Wow. Were you familiar with the books that this movie was based on?
No, I'd never heard of the books.
Up to
Have
now, I
you,
still think I never heard of anyone who's read the books.
have you
Actually, no,
read the books?
I think I know one person actually who's read the books. But
Okay.
besides that, I don't know anyone else.
Yeah, I feel like one of these days I should look up the books and try and find them and read them because I probably would like them. But
If anything like this movie,
yeah, it's and plus the fact that the movie left it wide open for sequels. I'm sure that there's story material covered in the books that are not covered in the movie.
But from what I understand, I think it's a series of books. It's like 9 or 10 books.
Oh, well then, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know how many books are covered in this movie, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot left to cover. I feel sad that I guess it wasn't really a flop, but I guess it didn't really make as much as they had hoped. So maybe that's why there's no sequel planned.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's probably a bit too late to make a sequel as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I looked it up and it was not a flop. It says budget 80 million, box office 140 million. 60.5 million domestic.
Oh yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah, it's under 40 million worldwide. So I thought it was more than that. So yeah, it wasn't a flop, but I guess it still wasn't enough.
These days, it seems like if a film is not a runaway hit, people think it's a flop.
Toy Story 4 made $1 billion. It's a
flop. That whole thing is ridiculous.
300 million only on its first weekend. It's a flop.
Sometimes I get real tired of people on Twitter who overanalyze things to death.
Yeah. But I mean, if they ever do make a sequel of this, at least you and I would be up there to buy a ticket.
Yeah. Well, on the wiki page, they still have a section that says possible sequel.
Yeah, I read that, and I know like Jim Sturgis. I think he's pretty set to come back on if they ever announce a sequel or whatever.
That's what it says. So who knows? I mean, it's an animated film, so it's not like people are gonna like age too much.
One thing I liked about this movie is that almost the entire cast are all Australian or New Zealand actors and actresses.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that the first time I watched it, but as I was watching it this time, and I'd completely forgotten that it takes place in Australia. So I was watching, I was like, are these all Australian actors? I was hearing the accents, like, because like I'm not perfect at picking out accents, but I was like, this doesn't sound quite British.
Yeah.
Is this Australian? And I thought somebody sounded New Zealand, like they were from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up and I was like, this is an American-Australian film, and like a lot of the people were from there.
Yeah. I think like Jim Sturgis, I think he himself is British, and I think Miriam Margolyes, who voices the snake Mrs. P, I think she's British too, but I think everyone else is Australian or New Zealand.
Yeah.
Like Joel Edgerton is in this movie, which I was surprised to find out afterwards. This is the first time I've ever heard him in a non-American accent before.
And he's Australian?
Yeah. It was cool to hear Sam Neill and Hugo Weaving and Jeffrey Rush.
Yeah, the whole thing with Sam Neill, I like it had been so long since I'd watched this, so I'd forgotten like plot twists and stuff. So I picked out Sam Neill right away when his character was talking to Metalbeak, and then this other owl shows up within the Guardians. I was like, that's Sam Neill, and I don't think he was playing two characters. Like, well, I think I just blew the twist because it turned out, yes, he was playing both sides and was
traitorous Alomir.
Yeah.
One thing for me, that it was hard sometimes for me to distinguish some of the owls because I felt some of them looked similar to others. But I think for the most part, it was easy to tell them apart.
Yeah, they did a good job in making most of the main characters be different owl species.
Yeah.
So the main family were all barn owls. Like the bad guys, they were all in the Taito family, like barn owls and other ones that are related, with enough differences that you could pick them apart.
Yeah.
Like any of the minor characters, it could get kind of hard to figure out who was who. But
like the warrior poet one, him I got confused with Alamir sometimes just from looks.
they're both gray owls.
Yeah,
So it
so
was
that's probably why.
yeah, they're both the same species. Like the two main owls that you're following for a while, it made it really easy because one is
One's a pygmy.
barn owl, the other one is what kind was she?
Pygmy owl, is that what they call?
I probably wrote it down.
Dwarf owl.
Elf owl.
Elf owl.
Yeah. So you could tell like a big one and then a little one.
I get them mixed up, and they're different colors too.
Yeah.
And then there are also other animals in this, like there are evil bats, which were very evilly drawn.
Yeah, I had forgotten that there were bats in this movie, and then they showed up, and I was like, oh yeah, that was. I really like. I mean, I like bats. Not like in the way that like, oh, they're so cute, but I think they're kind of cool. I mean, some are kind of cute, but I just really liked having all these bats show up, and it turns out they're like the evil minions of the hero ones.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good story element, and then having the whole thing, like I'm not sure what they were building. Like, was the weapon? Is that something that was just invented for the movie, or is there some scientific basis for these metallic, I guess, magnetic things affecting owls' flights? Like, is that a thing, or did they just make that up for the movie?
I'm pretty sure they just made that up, but I mean, I'm not an owl scientist, so I can't say. That was a little bit confusing. So they need these metal specs, and then they put them all together underneath the blue misty haze, and it plays with your
I think
gizzard.
The specs were creating the blue
misty haze.
I think that was supposed to represent a magnetic field, and that's what was affecting their gizzards. But I'd never heard of birds having their gizzards affected by magnetic fields, so I wasn't sure if this is just something that I'd never read about or if they made it up for the movie, which is fine if they did, because it's a fantasy anyway. Like owls don't create armor for themselves.
What? And there's like moon blinking, like that's something else too.
Yeah, I don't know if that was based on anything or not.
Just staring at the moon for a while and then
I mean, it was a good story element, so I'm not going to pick apart as being not scientifically possible in a movie like this. It's part of the world. You just gotta go with it.
I feel bad sometimes though about some of the characters we don't find out about, like the I forget his name, the one who helped Soren and what's her name, the elf owl, learn to fly. Yeah. And then he said he was trying to save his family, but you never know what happened to them. I'm pretty sure they didn't survive, but we don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure they killed him.
Yeah.
And I got the impression that his family probably had been killed a long time ago, and they were just leading him on so he'd continue to work for them. It just seemed like something that this group of evil owls would do.
I think Clud is the weirdest name I ever heard for an owl.
I was thinking about that too, because all of the owls, especially in his family, have like, I don't know, elegant sounding names.
Soren, Alomir.
Well, for his family, the parents are Noctis and Morella.
True.
And there's Soren, Eglantine, and Clud. It's like, were his parents trying to make him evil by giving him this really clunky sounding name compared to his siblings?
He might have been the eldest. I'm not sure if he was older than Soren or not. So it's like they started off with Clud, and then they're like, "Nah, we gotta change it for the next one."
It's just one of those things where it's like the name just sounds like a bad guy, so you're kind of setting him up for failure. I
also think it's a pretty lame name for a bad guy too, Clud. I don't think that strikes fear in anyone's heart. Like Metalbeak was cool.
Yeah.
Here comes Clud.
He does sound kind of like, I don't know, a weird minion.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if he'll adopt the title of Metal Beak though, because they had that shot at the end where he was looking at the Metal Beak armor.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe he was going to take that on for himself since Metal Beak died.
That does seem possible because he was like the favorite of the owls that they were training. So I feel he would be the next up.
So because this takes place in Australia, I thought it was really cool that they incorporated a lot of Australian creatures into this.
I guess.
Like I said, it had been a long time since I watched this, but as soon as they fell out of the tree, I suddenly was like having a flashback. I was like, wait a minute, there's a Tasmanian devil in this scene, isn't there? And then it jumped out. Like, you never see real Tasmanian devils in anything.
Sure.
So it was really cool that they had one included in this movie.
Yeah, they have all kind of weird, neat animals in this besides owls, the bats, the Tasmanian devil, the echidna.
Yes, the echidna. I loved the echidna.
Or the foretelling echidna.
Yes, like his last line at the end when all the owls are flying over. I foretold you so. I remember after we watched this the first time, back when it first came out, we were quoting that line for a while. I foretold you so. I loved the echidna. He was hilarious.
That's another problem. Well, not issue, but the thing about this movie is I would have liked to see more of certain characters. But I guess maybe because they were hoping for maybe a series, so they would build up characters in future films. Like the echidna, you don't see much.
Yeah.
The girl owl, I forget her name, the one that Soren met at the tree of Gahu.
Yeah.
Who was like taking them around. You don't really find out much about her. You think she's gonna become like this big main character, but it's just one scene, and that's the best thing she has.
Yeah, I was making my notes while watching this, and I was trying to remember all the names. I don't know they probably said her name and I missed it, but I kept listening.
They said her name, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, and she was kind of there for the rest of the movie, but she was also like kind of in the background, so
yeah.
It seemed like she was going to become a bigger thing than she did.
Ochulissa, that's her name, Ochulissa.
Okay. Yeah, because at the end, he reunites with his family, and there's not really a scene with them together again.
Yeah.
So it seemed like she was a bigger deal than she ended up being. But if they do a sequel, I'm sure or if they were planning a sequel, who knows? I'm sure that was the plan for... It seemed like they were setting her up as a love interest.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. But it was just... It lasted for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And that was it. Even like the other owls, like the head owls and the guardians themselves, you don't see a lot of them. Alomir, you get a lot of.
Yeah.
But even the head owl, what's his name, Boron, you don't really see much of him, I don't think, for a leader.
Yeah, the king and queen, I tried to remember their names. I never caught their names again. I just heard them referred to as the king and queen. So
I think it was him, Boron, but I don't know what the queen was.
I don't remember. I just remember their first scene when they rescue them in the storm, or the ice storm, the snow. That was one of my favorite scenes. It's just so cool.
Played well, like when Boron comes down, and then everything goes slow, and she just like rises up with Digger, or not Digger.
I think that was
Digger.
His name.
Yeah, it was Digger, and just rising up with him.
Yeah.
And it's very legendary.
Yeah, the slow motion scenes, I don't know how anybody could dislike them because they just look so epic. Because the music would change, and it's like, especially in those scenes, I really got like a Lord of the Rings vibe. This whole movie was just like Lord of the Rings, but with owls.
For me, this movie reminded me of, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Redwall. It was an animated show back in the 90s. It reminded me of that, but with owls.
Oh, that's a flashback. I haven't thought of that in years. We were obsessed with that show when we were kids.
Yeah, I remember when it debuted. I never watched every episode, but I watched enough to not to remember what happens, but like I know like this is a cool show.
That was probably one of the first examples of like serialized television that I really was obsessed with. Like nowadays, I love serialized television, and I can really get into those kind of shows. And I don't think it was very prominent back then, especially not in a kids show.
Yeah.
So that was like a really big deal. Like when Redwall was on, we had to watch Redwall. We got to find out what's going to happen next.
And it's very similar to this one that it's a whole bunch of books that it was based on as well.
Yeah, a fantasy world with woodland creatures.
So that's my next question for you. Do you think let's say they decided to go the Redwall approach with this movie and instead made it a TV show, a series? Do you think that would have made a better adaptation or a worse adaptation?
I would probably say better, but that's just because I always think that book adaptations are better when they're given more room to breathe.
Yeah.
But I haven't read the books, so I don't know how long they are, and I don't know how many different stories there are within the books. But in general, I would say it probably would have been a better idea. I mean, it probably still could happen if somebody else gets the rights to it. That would be something I'd like to see Netflix take on.
I'm thinking that would. I don't think we'd see a sequel to this movie, but I can see maybe like a Netflix series or something.
Yeah, because Netflix, what they did with the series of unfortunate events, that was like my ultimate dream for that series, because I didn't hate the movie, but I was very disappointed by the movie. The Netflix series basically gave a movie or a movie length amount of time to each book and was like the perfect adaptation for that series. And I really want that to happen for more series. This would be like the perfect thing for them to do it on. It's like a really epic fantasy series. The thing with that though is you have to make sure that they're given enough time to do it, because Netflix has been brutally canceling series left and right these days, it seems. And I don't know if I would feel safe with Netflix adapting it. Like, if it gets 1 million less watchers than they think it should get, are they going to cancel it?
Probably.
Who knows? It's like I'm hesitant to get excited for things showing up on Netflix because I'm afraid that Netflix isn't going to give it a chance to find an audience.
I can see that, especially with Disney Plus coming out. They're gonna have a lot of competition with serials.
I feel like, and I don't know this for a fact, but at least with Disney Plus, it seems like their series seem like what we would think of as a mini series for television. It doesn't seem like they're planning these to be like multi-year series that they get new seasons of, because like at least for things like WandaVision, I don't see how that can last beyond a series, one season.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that that's probably what they're going to be doing with the rest of them, because the shows like
Marvel and all that.
She-Hulk, like if they do what I think they're going to do, which is make it like a courtroom procedural, that I could see going on for multiple seasons. But other things, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But for now, it just seems like they're making shows that they have a beginning and an end planned. And as long as they don't end them on a cliffhanger, that's fine. Because my problem is too many shows end their seasons on cliffhangers. Then they get canceled and they don't get an answer as to what's going on. I hate that. I've been burned so many times getting into a show and have it canceled after one or two seasons. And that's not just Netflix. That's
like of the creator. Tell me what happens next.
Yeah. I really didn't have any experience with that, because like every show that I liked when I was younger, it was just a show that it just went until it ended. Yeah. And then I think the first one that did that to me was a show called Surface. Have you heard of that show?
No, I haven't heard of it.
That's not surprising. It lasted one season of like 13 episodes. It was about this kid who finds a little sea monster.
Yeah.
And it over the season it grows up. But then there's this whole other thing with all these sea monsters like showing up around the world and different people finding different ones. And then at the last episode, like I think the world started flooding and these sea monsters were like coming everywhere. and then it just ended, and then it was canceled, and I was like, you just ruined this for me.
I have my condolences. Gotta look at that surface.
That was probably around the time of the writers' strike in like 2000.
Oh yeah.
That and the other big one, even though it didn't get canceled immediately, was Pushing Daisies. Have you ever seen Pushing Daisies?
No, but I heard about it, and I never heard about people being upset at the cancellation of it.
Pushing Daisies is to this day still one of my favorite shows. They cobbled together a satisfying ending out of some ideas that they had for future seasons. So it did have an ending, but it still ended after less than 20 episodes, I believe.
Mm.
So that one, I'm upset that it ended, but I'm glad that it had an ending. But there's still room for something if it could come back. I'm still holding out a tiny bit of hope that it could come back in the future.
Hey, the way everything's going nowadays, everything's getting rebooted.
Yeah. So maybe Legend of the Guardians will get rebooted.
Yes.
I'm hoping that would be really cool. I hadn't really thought about that, but if someplace like Netflix or whoever owns the rights to it, depending on how long they hold on to that, maybe even Disney, like they could get it and reboot it as a Hulu series or maybe a Disney Plus series. It's such a cool idea, just the whole world with owls. That
it is. I'd love to know more about it because sometimes, like that's another issue I have with the movie is that since there's so much to show, it kind of goes very quickly. Like right from the beginning, that's when Soren gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
So you think he'd live, a few days and see him natural life, and then maybe 20 minutes in, then he'll get kidnapped, and then go to Metal Geek and his people. But it's like, nope, literally like five minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
And literally 15 minutes into the movie, he's on his way to the Guardians. So.
Yeah, stuff like that is why I think that TV series work so much better for, especially book adaptations. It just gives you more room to get to know the characters, and I don't know, it helps for me at least with identifying the characters and really liking them a lot. Like
you have time to learn to know them.
Yeah, as much as I like this movie, it didn't give me a whole lot of time to get to know and really care about a lot of the characters. So basically, the only people I really cared about were Soren and Gylfi, and then Eglantine because she's just a cute baby owl. You don't want anything bad to happen to the cute baby owl. But like all of the side characters, I really didn't care about. Even the snake, which normally the snake would be one of my favorite characters. Like, she was cute. She's not a regular side character. She's something that people hate, a snake, but she has a cute little old lady voice. So I like that about her, but there wasn't enough with her for me to like really care about her as a character. I just liked her as a concept more than a character.
Because literally the second time we see her is when she's being captured by Twilight to be eaten. And very fortunately, she ends up in the same place Soren is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she would have been eaten, and that was the end of her story.
But yeah, a TV series would be the best option. Like before we started talking, I was hoping for a sequel. Now I'm hoping that somebody else gets the rights to make a TV series instead.
I'm glad I could convince you.
Yeah, whoever it is.
Or even, would you even mind a prequel series, like maybe about Lies of Keel back in the day?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and like that whole battle and what brought the Guardians up and all that.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
I'd be cool with that.
Just owls. I love owls. Anything they're going to do with owls, that would be really cool.
Nice.
Well, I probably should let you go. I guess, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Well, if you're into animation and stuff, you can find my blog at the Animation Commendation, which is markp4.wordpress.com. Or if you like live-action Disney films, you can get my live-action Disney project at myliveactiondisneyproject.wordpress.com. And also, I also write for the Rotoscopers along with my friend Jonathan here, and you can check them out at rotoscopers.com.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me for this. Thanks
for having me.
We'll have to think of something else we can talk about too.
Yeah, we finally got this one down, so we got to do Was it Christmas in July? Is that the next one?
Well, that was last month, but
No, true.
there's at least one Christmas movie we talked about for actually at Christmas, so I'm sure there's other things we could talk about too. We both love animation, so there's plenty of movies out there that we could talk about.
And we both don't mind watching the obscure ones too. So
yeah, if you want to think of something really obscure, I wouldn't mind watching something really obscure.
I'll see what I can dig up.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time. Thanks again to Mark for joining me on this episode and for picking another great movie for us to talk about. I'll have links to his vlogs down below, so make sure you check out his stuff. Since it's getting close to the end of the month, and since my IRL schedule is pretty busy, I may not get a chance to get another episode out this month. I'm going to try. I have a recording session with someone planned for later this week. However, just in case things don't work out, I think instead of previewing the next episode, I'll preview the next month instead. And like most of my plans, this is currently tentative, but in October I am planning to celebrate a new holiday I'm just making up myself, Oztober. Every week in October, I'm planning to have a new episode covering a different adaptation of either The Wizard of Oz or some other book in L. Frank Baum's Oz series, or some other thing set in Oz, or loosely based on the ideas of Oz, or pretty much anything Oz related. Everything Oz is fair game, except for that prison series called Oz. We're not doing that. I don't know yet what all we'll be covering, but I'm planning to have a variety of guests, so hopefully we'll get a wide selection of reviews. As you may know, I love looking at different adaptations of classic stories, whether it be Alice in Wonderland in my Wonderland Wednesday series, or my Christmas Carol Countdown series in December, or now Oztober, looking at all things Wizard of Oz. There's so many wildly different takes on this material, so I'm really excited to start this new series. So whether I'm back again this week with a new episode or next month with a new series, I'll see you next time on the iHeart Podcast.